Welcome, everybody. So, kicking off an semi-impromptu live feed. I actually had a little bit of forethought on this where I figured I'd put some questions out to you guys to see, like, hey, what do you want to talk about? And for you guys tuning in over here on Instagram, hello, Facebook, we're here. I kind of have both of you guys, so I'll be splitting time. And, yeah, so you guys sent in a few questions, and I've got them jotted down here. I hope everyone's having a fantastic St. Patrick's Day. Mine is going quite well. And that was one of the first questions that people asked me was, hey, what's the history? Let's talk a little bit about St. Patrick's Day and how it came to be. And you know, I'm not a historian by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, I am somewhat familiar with the holiday and its origins. So obviously comes from Ireland. There was a Catholic priest, a Saint Patrick, who I believe was born in Roman Britain during that time, was actually a slave in Ireland, ended up going back there after he was done doing slave stuff, I guess, and ended up bringing Christianity to Ireland. And so that's kind of where he made his notoriety, his fame, and kind of started the holiday based off of his namesake. And one of the things they credited, when this is why we use the shamrock, apparently is he used the three sides of the shamrock, which grew natively in Ireland, to help illustrate the idea of the Holy Trinity. For those of you of a Christian belief, you'll be familiar with that. For those of you that are not, that may be a foreign concept to you, and I'm not going to delve too deep into that here. There's plenty of other places you can get brushed up on your religious knowledge. But anyway, yeah, so St. Patrick brought Catholicism, Christianity to Ireland, and it's been celebrated essentially, you know, a few centuries after that happened. And it occurs right, you know, March 17th every year, which is right in the middle of Catholic Lent. And what people really enjoyed about it is you could actually re-pick up some of the things that you may have put down for Lent. So with Lent, you're just giving up some things. Traditionally, there was a set number of things that you would not do during that period leading up to Easter. Now, I think the common practice is to pick a thing, a particular vice that you're going to give up for that time period. But St. Patrick's Day, kind of all bets were off, and you could drink and you could enjoy the foods that you had sworn off for the time. So people really enjoyed that. And then that was obviously a tradition that was brought to the United States. We had a huge Irish influx after the potato famine, and so it grew in popularity. And now, you know, every time this year people go out and everyone's a little bit Irish and they drink their faces off and have a great time and wear green, and that's kind of the history of that. So that's at least my understanding of it. Some of you guys may be better versed in the history, so feel free to correct me. And you can put that in the comments and tell me I'm way off, or if you agree, awesome. You can give me a thumbs up or whatever, and we'll keep it moving. So let's see, a few comments here. Guys are saying the that the video is looking okay, a little bit of lag, but not too bad. You guys are on the phone here on Instagram land, so you should be fine. I've got my fancy camera set up here trying to play around with some stuff. So let's see. Chris says, just don't make any Irish puns. You will shame us all. Ha! Well played, sir. Nicely done. Let's see. Sean says, family is over. Just copy the link to watch later. Yeah, man, please do. I'm going to upload it in HD, so hopefully the quality will be a little bit better when you catch it on the second time around. Going through the list, there were a couple of other things that people wanted to talk about. One of the guys, because this is kind of a ask me anything, or you guys choose a topic and we'll talk about it for a little bit. One of the questions or topics was the difference between, or the balance between, confidence and humility. And I think that, that is a very delicate and tricky thing. And I think for the savage gentleman, it's important to understand, where that line is, because you can go too far on one side and be grossly overconfident, perhaps a bit too savage. And obviously there's some setbacks with that. On the other end, there's a spectrum where we can get too humble, right? We have too much humility, where we're not standing up for ourselves and we're not, moving the ball forward, so to speak. We're taking a back seat, and I think that puts us too far on the gentleman's side. And so the savage gentleman knows that balance in between the two. What does that look like in practice? Man, there's I wish I had a clear, succinct answer. That's something that I'm still working on. I think it's for me, it's situationally dependent. I'm far more confident and less humble in the areas that I have some expertise in. If I have experience and some knowledge somewhere, then it's pretty easy to be confident. I don't want to be, conceited or go too far. And generally people who have a true mastery of something understand, how easily the tables can turn in something, right? And using fighting for the example, yeah, most good fighters are very confident in their ability, but a really good fighter, a very experienced fighter, understands that there's some intangibles, there's some unforeseen factors, and even the best fighters can have bad days. And so even though you're really good and you may win more often than not, you understand that there is the possibility of losing on any given day, and that does help a lot with humility. Applying that to other situations, sometimes it's really easy to make that connection. Sometimes it's a bit of a stretch, but that's where I think, again, true experience and mastery of something helps you gain that balance, right? It leads you to not be falsely humble, right? Where you see a lot of people, they put up this fake humility, right? To seem, I don't know, like a nicer guy or a better guy or more amicable, right? And it's kind of easy to see through that, right? When someone is amazing at something, but then they downplay it, right? We're like, well, it comes across as a little weird and kind of odd, and most people don't like that. So figuring out, like, okay, when am I being honest? And I think that's really the key in finding the balance, is just honesty, right? If you're being honest with yourself on something, then you're not going to be exceedingly confident, but you don't have to be grossly overly humble as well. So that, to me, I think is the best way to navigate that when you're trying to find that balance between confidence and humility, is really just sheer honesty, right? And that's one of the hardest things for us to do, is actually be honest with ourselves. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and there's still things that I like to kid myself about, right? I'm still not completely honest all the time with myself. Like, I have convinced myself that this hairstyle is pretty cool, and I justify it mostly because my wife really likes it. But I know deep down inside, if I'm being honest, it's pretty ridiculous. Probably isn't the most flattering look, but it is what it is. So hopefully that answered that question. We've got a few comments on here. Let's see. Chris says, that's a pretty stylish vest, sir. Yeah, it's not too shabby. This is our Ketchum Vest. It's based off of our Ketchum jackets, which some of you guys may have seen we released, and we actually pretty much sold out of those. We have a couple, I think we have a couple left in the smaller sizes, but that's, they're gone. We may bring them back next fall, but it was a limited run, so we'll see how that goes. But we did create this new vest, which is in the same styling for the spring season. Where are the pink shirts at? They are in production right now. We're actually getting the pink shirts made as we speak. You guys have been on my ass about the pink toxic masculinity shirts, and I've been kind of a bum. Haven't had a chance to get those kicked out to you guys, but they are on their way. They are happening. They are in process as we speak. So I would hope sometime either by end of this month or sometime in April, we should have those. So hopefully you guys can get your pink shirts and quit beating me up all the time. A couple of comments over here. It says, pride is eternal, humility is external. Oh, internal, excuse me. Pride is internal, humility is external. I think our perception of those things, yes, I don't know if I exactly agree with that. I mean, I think humility can be internal as well. Truthfully, I think they both can be both internal and external depending on how you want to slice it. So maybe, Chris, you want to elaborate on that a little bit and we can circle back. Let's see. Jared says, I'm having the struggle trying to explain this to my 14-year-old son. His mouth is writing checks his body can't cash eventually. He's in boxing, so it's going to his head. Plus, he has no respect to any authority figure, teachers, cops, and at times his stepmother. That's a great, and I think that's a very common issue for a young man, especially starting to come into his own and feel himself a little bit. Boxing can have that leveling off factor where if you run into the right person, it's pretty easy to get humbled. The downside with that is the propensity for injury, right? It's like, okay, if he's decent, then the guy who is going to humble him is going to hurt him. And sometimes that exchange rate isn't ideal. And so Jared, one of the things I might recommend would be transitioning him into wrestling. It's a combat sport, and he will definitely get humbled there, but he's probably not going to run the same risk of brain injury. He might get beat up. He's going to get some bumps and bruises. His ego's definitely going to get hurt, but in the grand scheme of things, those things can heal. The guy who's going to sit him on his ass and serve him some humble pie in boxing, like I said, if he's any good, it's going to possibly hurt him. Everyone gets a few dings to the head and they'll probably be okay, but it's accumulative. If he's going to do it over time, I would want to minimize those as much as possible. But that would be my thing, is to get him in a grappling sport so that he can, actually feel, right? Sometimes in boxing, it's easy to write off like, oh, that was a lucky punch. Oh, you get knocked out. But when someone just completely physically dominates you on the mat, whether it's jiu-jitsu or judo or wrestling or whatever, that one's really hard to explain away. And you got to do a little bit of soul searching on that, which I think is really valuable. All right, we've got some comments over here. Let me see if I can get caught up on this side with the Instagram folks. Confidence, humility are mutually exclusive. Confidence comes from a deep understanding of who you are and what you're doing. Humility is the absence of hubris. Oh, that's an interesting take. I don't think that they are mutually exclusive. I like the way that you broke that down, but I think you can be both confident and humble at the same time. I think, where you run into hubris is the overconfidence, right? Because if you don't have any confidence whatsoever, right? If you're perfectly humble, then you're never going to do anything. Right? You're never going to want anything more than you have. You're never going to push. Because you'll never believe that you can do anything more, right? Being confident means that, like, okay, I assess my situation. I see myself here, but I believe that I can go further. And that's confidence, and that's absolutely necessary. Without that, nothing would ever happen. We would never advance ourselves as men. We'd never advance our civilization. Humility is like, nope, I'm good right where I'm at. Everything is perfect. And, I probably can't do anything more, so I'm just going to stay right here. And again, being humble is important. I think, that prevents us, like was said before, from writing checks that our ass can't cash. But again, finding that balance, there's a point of being too humble and there's a point of being too confident. We want to really try and find that sweet spot. Let's see. Totally agree. It just sounded like maybe they were being referred to as opposites. Oh, no worries. Let's see. Man, lots of comments. It's tricky when I've got both sides running here, so I'm going to do my best with keeping up. Austin, when are we going to see you in the cage again? Yeah, I would not hold my breath for that one. This whole Savage Gentleman gig is pretty time consuming, and truthfully, it's a lot more lucrative than getting kicked in the face. So I think to scratch the itch for the competitive side, I'll probably get on the mat and do some BJJ competition, maybe some super fights. As far as stepping in the cage, oh, man, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I mean, I don't want to say I never say never with anything, but I don't see that, like I said, in the near future. Outlaw Patriot, what's up, buddy? Hope you're doing good down in you're Georgia, right? Georgia, Florida, right on the line there, pretty close to it. I hope you're doing well down there and staying away from them Gators as it starts to warm up. Let's see. Basically, so Chris says basically pride should be in your heart. Humility is what you show the world. Okay, I can agree with that. We kind of start getting into some weird semantics, right? Where we talk about pride and what that means, right? Because we can talk about pride as in one of the seven deadly sins, but then we can also talk about pride as just being proud of something. And I think that there's a line, right? And it's a delicate kind of a razor's edge as to where one crosses over, and we start to make a detrimental step into going too far. But I can get behind that, Chris. I think that's a good assessment. Let's see here. What else we've got going on? We've got a few more questions I want to get to. So someone asked for one of the topics they wanted to propose and talk about. They put up EDC as one of the things. So I think they said EDC, coffee, whiskey. They listed a ton of things. They're like, hey, talk about pretty much everything. And that may be a bit broad, but I figured I could touch on EDC a little bit. EDC being everyday carry. Most of you guys are probably familiar with that, but if you're not, that's what it stands for. So essentially, everyday carry, what you have on your person on a regular basis, right? What's in your pockets. And so I guess, the question would be, I'm assuming you're asking me what I carry. And it's kind of a boring answer. It's not that high speed or sexy or super cool. I really don't carry a lot. I carry my wallet, my keys, my cell phone, and then I'm typically wearing some kind of a watch. If I'm not getting too physical, then I'm wearing this new Luminox that I got, which is pretty dope. And then if I'm gonna be getting dirty or something a little bit more robust where I don't want to damage this beautiful thing, then I'll switch to my Rockwell watch that I've had for, oh man, I don't know, probably going on 6 years now. And that's about it. If I'm doing something that requires more things, then I'll bring them, right? So I've got a badass knife from Grizzly Forge that I'll carry if I'm going out into the woods. I don't conceal carry. I'm not opposed to guns. I like firearms a lot. I have no I have no issue with it whatsoever, other than for me with my background, I feel way more confident handling a situation with these than I do introducing a firearm or even a knife or a weapon into the situation. I mean, if there's a time that I can't get out of something with either using my brain and mouth, my legs, or my fists, I mean, now we're talking about this is like an apocalyptic scenario where, in that event, right, the world ends and I'm just wandering the wastelands, then now we're going to have a different story. Then, yeah, for sure that I'll be strapped. So, but for my everyday life, the likelihood of me getting into a gunfight is so minusculely small, versus like I might get into an altercation, an argument with someone, right? And in that situation, if I have to lay hands on someone, I'd much rather just use the over of a decade of hand-to-hand combat that I have than bringing this tool to bear, which personally I'm not super well versed in. I'm not incredibly trained. I wasn't in the military, so it never became a part of who I am. A lot of those guys who come from that background, I mean, their firearm is an extension of them. I'm not that comfortable with it. So to me, it's actually more of a liability in my hands than not having it all. That's my personal choice. I mean, I do have firearms. I own them. I just don't carry it with me everywhere because, that's, like I said, more of I think it's less of an asset and more of a liability for me personally. Let's see. Oh boy. So we got some EDC stuff. Let's see. Chris is listing his stuff. So he's got a knife. His concealed carry, he's got a tourniquet, so the rat's tourniquet, and a wallet and phone. Pretty solid. Jonathan says, speaking of watches, I was just about to ask you if you were a pocket watch kind of guy that I would expect to see with the best. I actually do have a couple of pocket watches. My lovely wife got me a pocket watch for as a wedding gift, which I still have, and it's really cool, super badass. It's an old antique one, and then I have a couple from my grandfather that I inherited over time. That I mix and match them every once in a while, just depending on what's going on. I actually need to the one that my wife got me, because it was an antique. One of the hands slipped off, so I've got to take it and get it repaired. But I do like pocket watches quite a bit, and obviously, they work quite well with our fancy vests. Let's see. Chris says, yep, with a gold and jeweled chain. Nice. So another pocket watch guy. Outstanding. Outlaw. Let's see. Yeah. Awesome, dude. Melinda Tyler, that's my mom. What's up? Mom joining us here. Howdy. Dad on the fly, how are you doing? So we've got lots of people on both sides here. Instagram folks, what's up? League of Savage Gentlemen on Facebook. Gentlemen, glad to have you here on this fine St. Patrick's Day evening. Just, celebrating with you all. Hope you're having an excellent night as well. For you guys who don't know about the League is our closed Facebook group that we do a lot of super secret, cool guy stuff. And so if that's something you're into, if you're on the Facebook side of the world, hop over there, request, answer the questions, and you can kind of jump in and see what it's all about. I try to do these live shows, I don't know, ideally once a week if I can. These guys will tell you that I kind of slack on that, but now I've got my new fancy setup. You can see my cool microphone here, so hopefully the sound's coming in good. And we're going to be bringing back podcasts. That's one of the reasons why I'm test driving this whole configuration, is to make sure I've got all the kinks worked out. I've got a really cool podcast I'm recording tomorrow with Jack Donovan. Some of you guys may know him. He's part of our group here, although he's not super active in Facebook anymore. He's a author in the men's space. He's got some incredible books out that I think are really useful. A lot of guys really have gotten a lot out of those. So he's going to come on, talk about his new book, Fire in the Dark. We'll be recording that tomorrow, and hopefully I'll edit it and get it out relatively soon. Let's see, Dad on the Fly. The only thing missing in my EDC is a 2X pink toxic masculinity shirt. They are on their way, sir. As mentioned earlier, someone else was giving me shit about not having those shirts. We're bringing them back. They were a limited run, but you guys have made so much stink over those being out of stock that we're bringing them back for you. We're bringing them back, the black and the pink versions, so you'll have your t-shirts very soon, real soon. Okay, let's see. Going down the list, the other thing someone asked about was the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury rematch. I think they're going on the trilogy now. I think number 3 is coming up, and I think it'll be interesting. I think it's a great matchup. I think obviously Joshua is the guy is a physical specimen. When you look at him, he is terrifying. And he backs it up, right? He has a skill and ability. Not only does he look the part, he is the part. And so that dude is a stud, and I for sure would not want to get hit in the face by him. And then you've got Tyson, who, I mean, for the way that guy moves, especially for a heavyweight, man, is fantastic. And for me, I really enjoy that. The defensive side that guy brings, man, the head movement is really impressive. And so I don't have much commentary other than, being excited for how that's going to play out. And, the other fights I very much enjoyed from a technical standpoint. And, looking forward to seeing how that pans out is probably the best I can say to that. Let's see. Dom says, loved your conversation with the Blevinses. Thank you. That was, man, if you guys haven't caught that podcast, it's the one that was most recently released. I sat down with Michael and Aaron Blevins, good friends of mine, at their nonprofit studio. So they have their own podcast. So I strong armed them into using their facilities to record a podcast while I was in town. And the main thing we talked about was like changing your environment, and just I'm as long as I've known them, it's funny that I'm still surprised like how the depth and wealth of knowledge that the two of them possess when it comes to the psychology, not just the physical act of, but the psychology of exercise and diet. I mean, they're so knowledgeable in that it makes me feel like I'm not even qualified to talk about health and fitness with people. And so I'm glad that I have them as a resource. And if you guys want to hear more about what they have to say on the matter, I would recommend checking out the podcast and then going and deep diving some of the other stuff that they're into, because like I said, it's an absolute wealth of knowledge. Let's see. James Johnson, MMA question. My goal is to do an amateur fight. I'm out of shape, need to lose about 90 pounds. What is a realistic timeline to accomplish my goal, in your opinion? That's a really good question. So there's a couple factors to consider when you want to get into MMA fighting. One is what's your intention, right? What's your overall goal? And realistically, like, where are you at in your life, right? If you're, a young buck who has the world in front of them and has every opportunity at their feet, then yeah, go for it, right? You can go that route, start off as an amateur, turn pro, and see where it takes you. And really, I mean, that's always a possibility, no matter where you are in that journey. It's just how far you're going to make it and how successful you'll be in that is somewhat contingent on how early or late in the game you're getting your start. The other thing to factor in is what prior experience do you have in combat sports, right? Do you have any kind of background, whether it's boxing or kickboxing or jiu-jitsu or wrestling or whatever? Because that's going to expedite, right? If you have one of those areas already kind of covered, right, then you can kind of plus up the others to get yourself there a little bit sooner, right, to actually start competing. So let's see. S. James Johnson, I've had some kickboxing and striking goals training in the past, but I'd be starting from scratch again. 33-year-old's married, working full-time. No dreams of pro, but just wanting to go amateur. I think that's totally doable. I think managing realistic expectations is important. But to get an amateur fight, I'd say with zero background, if I had someone who had no training whatsoever, you're starting from scratch, day one, I would give it a solid year. My personal advice, especially if you're a little bit older and you're going to have some time constraints with a wife and kids and a job and all these other things kind of pulling your attention. It's not like you're going to be able to dedicate, 8 to 10 hours a day to nothing but training and recovery, right? You're probably at best looking at 1 to 2 hours, maybe 5 days a week if you're super lucky. Realistically, as a guy with wife and kids and a full-time job, 2 to 3 days a week are probably going to be where it's at. And, so to get just the skill level down is going to take you, a year minimum, I think, if you want to actually give yourself some chance of success. If you don't give a shit, if you just want to get punched in the face and see what happens, then you could sign up for a fight tomorrow. I don't recommend that. Like I said, the outcome's not going to be great. And certainly, most likely not in your favor. So giving it that timeline, I think, is realistic. If you have a really strong background in some discipline, right? You competed at a high level in wrestling or jiu-jitsu or boxing or kickboxing or some other thing, and you're used to one-on-one combat sports scenarios, then I'd say your minimum would be 6 months on that timeline up to a year. And as far as losing the weight, I would, kind of work on those things simultaneously. Let your training and preparation help work getting your weight down. I mean, 90 pounds is a lot. You can crash course and lose that in, I don't know. I mean, on The Biggest Loser, they're losing it in a few months, which I don't recommend. Realistically, you could probably do it in 6 months. That's gonna super suck. I would shoot for maybe a year timeline for everything. So to lose the 90 pounds, to get your skills and conditioning. The conditioning won't take too long, especially if you're losing the weight, but really to just get comfortable in all the facets, right? Because you need to be able to strike, you need to be able to work from the ground, and then you need to know the transition, the wrestling component of defending the takedown and initiating the takedown. And to get all of those components fairly squared away, you're looking right in the neighborhood of 12 months. So hopefully that answered your question on that. Let's see. Questions there. We got questions here. Tara says, I've been asking for the pink shirt as well. Yeah, a lot of guys. I know. I get it. The pink shirt, it's a nice shirt, man. It's pink. It says toxic masculinity. What's not to love about it? They are coming. I promise. Stay tuned. Let's see. Chris says, fly me out there and put me in a 5-star hotel and I will be a guest. Oh, well, shit. If that's the case, then, I mean, yeah, well, I don't know why we haven't done that already. I mean, gee whiz. Okay, moving along. The next thing. So the next topic people asked to cover, you guys over here in Facebook land, part of the league, the appropriate amount of emotion, and that's I think that's a great topic. It's something that we don't seem to really touch on as much as we probably should as men. That emotions, warm, touchy-feely, type stuff, we generally shy away from, and I can totally appreciate that as a recovering non-emotional individual. I mean, I spent most of my life kind of repressing everything to the point where the only emotion that I really knew and understood was anger and probably more accurately rage. And that was it. It was either rage or nothing. And so spent really neglecting my emotional IQ and learning to understand what it is that I'm feeling, right? Because we all feel things, whether you want to admit it or not. How we process those feelings are another story, right? We interact in the world. I mean, we're designed to do that, right? We're a highly complex organism that's constantly taking in information, both through all of our senses, and we're going to internalize those in some way, right? They're going to make us feel something, whether it's a literal, like tactile feeling, or it's an emotional feeling. Now, how we use that and utilize that to our advantage is kind of up to us, and it comes with a bit of training and practice, right? We kind of have gotten to this place where, for a lot of guys, the idea of emotions are negative, right? Just bad, like the full on, stoic. And I don't think stoic from a philosophy necessarily abides by this, but the stoicism that I think has like misappropriated those lessons kind of conveys that, like, real men don't feel anything. They don't, they have no emotions, right? Emotions are weak and they're bad, and just get rid of them. And there's a time and a place, right? There's a time and a place where your emotions, any emotions, are not going to be to your advantage. The gray-bearded green beret, gray-bearded green beret. I think I got that right. Or no, today you're the green-bearded gray beret, since it's St. Patrick's Day. What's up, buddy? Glad to have you here. There's a time and a place where our emotions will actually do us a disservice, right? Emergency situations, right? Do or die, life-threatening, fight or flight. Like, getting emotional in that moment is not going to help you, right? Getting punched in the face and starting to cry is not useful. neither is going into a blind rage. And this is where I think a lot of guys miss the mark, and where, again, our emotional intelligence is probably a lot lower than it should be, where it's like a lot of guys have this, I don't know what it is, this idea that rage, if channeled appropriately, can save the day, right? If I'm in a fight and I just get super pissed off, then I'm unstoppable, right? And it's like, dude, it doesn't work that way. It's not Dragon Ball Z, right? You can't just sit there and power up your anger and then think that you're going to beat anyone in the world, right? It doesn't work that way. And to prove that point, because some of you guys, I'm sure, don't believe me. It's like, bro, you don't know my mentality. Okay, if you could will yourself into beating someone who is better than you at fighting, right? Just anyone, doesn't matter. If you could just will yourself through anger and rage to win any fight, then I would also challenge you to will yourself to PR your bench press, okay? So pick a number. It really doesn't matter. Like, whatever your best bench press has been in all time. Like, let's give you a decent, let's say 315 is the best you can do, right, on bench press. And then I say, okay, what about 316 pounds? Do you think you could pull that off? And you're like, maybe. What about 317, 318, 319? And you're like, whoa, now we're pushing it, right? And then I go outrageous, like, all right, what about 405? And you're like, absolutely not. If 315 is your best, and I say, and put 405 on the ball, it's going to crush you, on the bar, excuse me. So then, using the logic of getting really angry, I say, well, what if you really wanted? What if you just got super pissed off and then decided, oh, now I'm going to get that weight? And it's like, no, the fact remains you're not going to move that bar just out of anger. The same holds true with fighting. The same holds true with pretty much any endeavor that we're trying to do. Being angry doesn't help. So in certain situations, emotions aren't useful. Now, on the other side, emotions can be a really great tool if we know how to use them appropriately. Emotions, if we can learn to recognize them and understand where they're coming from, they can be really great signals for a lot of things, right? Those emotions can help inform us as to our current state and our relationship with what's happening around us. So, if I'm getting sad, if something makes me sad, well, then my question is why? And is there a good reason to be sad? And if there is, then I'll go ahead and feel that feeling, right? Because it's something that my body is telling me, like, hey, you need this release, right? You've taken in this information and you need to process it in this way. And I think that's perfectly healthy and perfectly fine. Then there's other sides where it's like, man, I'm feeling some kind of way and I don't know why. And, we don't know what to do with that because we haven't asked ourselves the questions like, okay, what am I actually feeling in this moment? And what's coming from that? What's coloring that? What's driving these things? And I think for most of us as man, we just say, oh, feelings bad, get it out. And we shut it down. And, I would say before I got married, that was my MO. That was 100% the way that I operated with everything. And it took cultivating the relationship with my wife and a lot of really uncomfortable discussions to start recognizing, like, okay, there is some usefulness in these feelings if I can, use them as a marker or as some kind of a signal for where I'm at, and take that and use that information appropriately, right? If I'm down in the dumps for whatever reason, then that means something is awry or amiss somewhere in my life, right? Whether that's things that are happening around me, whether it's purely just a brain chemical thing that's happening, something is off kilter. And so if I can catch it before it gets, too far gone, then hopefully I can intervene on my own behalf and make some changes for the positive and right the ship. Same thing with anger as an emotion, right? If I'm constantly pissed off and angry about everything all the time, it means something is wrong. I'm not doing things correctly. Some might say that it's the environment and it's an external influence, but I want to put the onus on myself. If I'm angry or feeling a certain way and I don't like that feeling, then it's on me to figure out, okay, what the hell's going on and what do I need to do to fix it or change it. And I think that that's important. It's good that we feel these emotions, and it's good that these emotions make us uncomfortable, because if we're not uncomfortable, then we have no reason to change anything, right? Discomfort is our motivation to make changes, and that's the only way we're going to improve our situation, right? If I didn't have something within me that recognize the discomfort of being cold, then I'm not going to go through the effort to start a fire, which means I'm going to freeze to death in the wild. And so you can take that to and apply it to more modern scenarios, but that discomfort moving us to change is the catalyst for all growth and development and advancement. So I think it's really important, and emotions are simply just another facet of that. Let's see. Lenny says, daughter changed everything in me. Yeah, that was a big one. Same thing, man. Like having a daughter, and kids in general, when my son was born, the same thing. It's like, man, I felt things that, I didn't know I was capable of feeling, truthfully. So, some of us may not be there yet, but just know if you're a young soon-to-be father that, man, that whole emotional thing will definitely change quite a bit when the little ones come along. Let's see. My 6-year-old wants to start BJJ. Is that a good age to start? I think that's a perfect age to start. 5, 6, depending on the kid, you could start a little bit sooner. Their ability to pay attention. The thing I think with jiu-jitsu or in any sport really is, what's their ability to like pay attention? Are they good listeners? Will they follow directions? Are they easily distracted? If that's the case, then you may need to wait for them to get a little bit more mature. With jiu-jitsu or wrestling or another combat sport, I think the other litmus test is how well do they respond to resistance, right? If something doesn't go their way, do they have a complete freak out and meltdown, or are they fairly resilient to obstructions, right? Because that is what wrestling, that is what jiu-jitsu is. You have another human physically trying to prevent you from doing the things that you want to do. And for a lot of young children, that's a very difficult, even for adults, that's a really steep hurdle to get over. So that would be the thing that I would look at. I wouldn't get caught up on how old they are necessarily. I would just look at the kid themselves and how they react into those kind of environments. Let's see, I started MMA at 7, and the younger is better. Yeah, I mean, like I said, as long as they're capable of processing, and they're having fun. That's the other thing too, is like, man, they need to be having fun. There's no need in putting a young kid in an activity that they hate and that they're going to be miserable, because even if they show potential in that, you're going to burn them out, you're going to turn them off. And I don't know how many guys that their parents pushed them into wrestling, way too early and way too hard. And man, these guys could have been some of the best wrestlers on the planet. But by the time they got old enough to really do anything with it, they were like, screw this, dude, I'm out. I'm over it. And so it's important to like make sure that fun factor is still there in whatever it is they're doing. Let's see. Alfredo says, I do understand the feeling. I do not feel it on losing when it is about equals. I do feel it when a situation where I am forced to face something or someone stronger in every way, knowing I would lose if I do something, there is consequences. Alfredo, sorry, I'm not quite sure what that's in reference to. I'd love to tackle and touch on that a little bit, but I'm trying to figure out where to fit that in the conversation, because I know there's a bit of a language barrier. I'm guessing English isn't your first language. So, and trust me, if I tried to type out something in any other language than English, it would be incomprehensible. So I think I'm following there. I just need a little bit of context so I can touch on that. And then while you're working on that, the last thing that was requested for us to cover in this is dating. So that is, man, I don't exactly know what to say on that, honestly, just because I think I'm too old and been out of the game for too long. So I can tell you about dating in the early to mid 2000s, post 2011. I really don't know. I mean, and probably in the last 5 years, the dating world has changed just so drastically, that, man, it's like apples and oranges. And so hopefully I'll give some general tenets of dating that may provide useful. But for you young bucks that are out there using Tinder or Bumble or whatever the apps are these days, man, I don't know how to play that game. I will say that, first and foremost, the main thing to keep in mind with dating, personally, in my mind, is that the goal is to find the person that you're most compatible with to ultimately marry and be in a partnership with for ideally the rest of your life, right? So, yeah, sure, you want to go on dates, and for a lot of guys, it's about having, spending time with women, and there's a companionship factor there, and there's a sexual component that obviously we're all drawn to. But I think that there's a bigger thing at play where it's like, man, we're long-term companionship. Like, we are made to be in a partnership. Personally, some people may not disagree, or some people may disagree. And if you're the type of person that can make a polyamorous relationship work, more power to you. I'm not here to tell anybody how to live their lives. I have just, more often than not, I see those going in not so great of a direction over time. I think that they probably start off really great, and open relationships, kind of the same thing. And then I think that our natural tendency leads us to to stray away from that. I think if we're looking over the history of mankind, and when we really started to advance as a society, the most progress has been made during the period where we've been relatively monogamous, and we've kind of had this a partnership with someone, right? I think that is so far proven to be the ideal. And I would say that if the other situations worked better, if being single for our entire lives, sleeping around or having multiple wives or doing all these other different, non-traditional, I guess, relationships worked better, then I think that the cream would rise to the top, and we have evolved to do that. The fact that is not kind of the standard thing leads me to believe that, okay, ideally you want to find that one person that you can partner with and grow together and create a life together. And that should be the goal of dating, is finding that person. Dating should be where you kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work, both in yourself as well as in the partner that you're looking for. And I think we're people, and I made this mistake growing up. I think we end up dating people for too long out of convenience, right? Or because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or we don't want to, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush kind of thing. It's like, well, I've already got a relationship, and it's okay. I don't want to lose that and then be, maybe this is the best I can do, right? There's a lot of psychology that goes in there. But, in my mind, with dating, once you realize that the relationship, you can't partner with this person, right? It's not going to lead to a healthy and happy marriage. Then, do both of you a favor and break it off, right? There's no point in continuing that. Doesn't mean you can't be friends potentially or whatever, but it's like, hey, we are way too different. We're just not compatible in that way. So there's no point in continuing. And I think if people realize that, they save themselves a lot of time and a lot of heartache overall. that's, how you apply that to the modern world. That's up to you. I don't know exactly how to make that work in again in the Tinder realm where and just the social media age that we're in now, where it is very different. You know, if I try to think about putting myself out there as a single guy and how I would go about it and where I would find um, people, and man, I don't know how it would work. I guess I would do a ton of Tinder dates and hope for the best. And I think that that's the only thing that you can do is, not necessarily turn and burn, like give people a fair chance, but um, you've got to put yourself out there in hopes of finding it. And sometimes it's pure dumb luck, right? I know for me personally, like me actively pursuing a potential mate, girlfriend, whatever, never really netted great results. The best relationships I ever had, in my current marriage with my wife, kind of just happened by chance. And, some of you may believe in fate, some of you may not. But I think sometimes when we push too hard for something, we get tunnel vision and we kind of miss the forest through the trees. And so I think just being open and constantly working to just go about our lives, improving ourselves, making the best out of what we have, and kind of inching that ball forward, I think the opportunities will come. I think the other advice I would give to dating would be, using past experience to formulate, the vision or the idea of the person that you want to be with. And that may shift over time, but, you got to start somewhere, right? You got to have at least some idea of what you're looking for, else otherwise, you're you're never going to know what direction or where to turn. So if you have an idea of who that archetype is, then trying to build out, like, okay, where's the best place that I can find that person, right? If I'm looking for someone who's really health conscientious and super fit and really into physical activity, then I'm probably not gonna find them frequenting fast food restaurants. If that's where I'm going out to eat all the time, I'm probably not going to run into that person. If I'm looking, I'm probably not going to find them, at 2 a.m. at a rave either, right? I mean, so I've got to, but maybe that's the person you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for someone who just likes to throw down and likes to party. Then you're probably not going to find that person sitting in the library at 7 a.m., right? So looking in the right places for the kind of person that you want to find, I think, is the other bit of advice that I would add to that. Okay, man, I've got a lot of comments here. Let me catch up here on the Facebook side, and then we're probably getting close. Yeah, we're almost to the hour mark. So let's we'll probably cap it there, but let me see if I can plug through the rest of them. You guys here over in Instagram world, you can throw your last few comments here if you like. Oh, let's see. So Alfredo, going back, I didn't explain it well. My rage is mostly motivated when I have to deal with situation when there is a lose situation. Okay, I think I'm piecing that together. I mean, look, we're in the context of using anger to help motivate you to accomplish something. Look, spite can be a really powerful tool, but I think it's very limited, right? You can only be spiteful and rage out in short increments, right? So, yeah, I mean, that 30 seconds of rage might be enough to see you through and get you out of a bad situation. But if it doesn't, then you're screwed because you're totally exhausted, right? And so for me, going back to the discussion over emotions, it's like, man, if I can control my emotions, if I can, when things are just falling apart around me, if I can not get caught in the fray, not get frazzled, not get angry, not lose my shit, if I can maintain my composure, then I can use the muscle between my ears, right, my gray meat, to formulate a strong game plan to hopefully get myself out of that and improve that situation. If I, run around and with it like a chicken with my head cut off, super angry, super pissed, Yeah, I can punch holes in the wall up until the point where my hands are broken, and then I'm useless, right? So there's good and bad to it, but I would say, if we can learn to temper our rage in those moments, we're going to be better served. And really that comes down to just adequately processing our emotion. Like, yeah, what I want to feel is rage right now, but I know it's not going to help me. What I want to feel is really sad right now. And maybe this is the time for me to use that emotion, right? In fighting, right? When you lose a fight, you're pretty disappointed. You're pretty bummed out. But for me to break down and cry in the middle of the cage in front of thousands of people on TV does me no good. Like, that serves me no purpose, even though that may be what I'm feeling, right? I may, if I'm being honest, there's been tons of time that I've been so, disappointed and saddened by the outcome. They're like, yeah, man, I just wanted to break down and cry and just have a little pity party for myself. And sometimes I do, but I do it in a place that is constructive, right? So I need to get out that emotion. I don't want to bottle up or repress it. I need to just get that out, express it, and then go about my day. And then I can look retroactively at, like, man, why did that upset me so much? Why was I so disappointed in my performance? Was it because I got embarrassed? Was it because, I physically got hurt? Whatever it is, that's the useful part. Is like, okay, where are these feelings coming from? Let's see. Jonathan says, how long have I been married? I've been married for almost 10 years. So I'll be coming up on 10 years this November. So 9.5, roughly. November 11th, 2011. So yeah, getting close to 10 years now. And it's, so far so good. It's been pretty good. It's work, and my wife will tell you the same thing. I am not that easy to be married to, which I'm sure is hard for you guys to believe, because I'm such a delight in front of the camera. But yeah, I'm kind of a pain in the ass. And everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and the key is, and this is what makes our marriage work, is we complement each other really well. We have really good communication, and we challenge each other in really good ways, right? So she pushes me to be better in ways that I probably wouldn't push myself, and I like to think that I push her in the same way, and together we kind of level up each other, which is kind of the point, right? That's the whole goal of getting married and finding that life partner, is to make each other better and enjoy life increasingly more the longer you are together. Not the other way around, where it's like, man, the longer you're married, the more miserable you get. That's although that seems to be all too common, that's not the intention. Let's see. Last thing here, Sam Fulkerson, can you give a shout out to my awesome wife Victoria? We just started 75 hard and she's so pumped. Super cool to see, dude. That's badass. So yeah, shout out to Victoria for getting in on the 75 hard train. The Andy Frizella, that's his baby over there at First Form. He's put that together, and I know a lot of guys who have really gotten a huge benefit of that. And yeah, so kudos to her. DeMarcus Johnson, what is up, dude? You're just jumping on at the last minute. Cheers, you fuck. Hope you're having a good St. Patrick's Day, buddy. We need to chat soon, man. I haven't talked to you in a while. Hope you and the fam are doing good out there in good old Salt Lake City. DeMarcus Johnson, a very dear friend of mine, training partner, a de facto big brother, taught me a lot about myself and some things that I probably didn't want to have to admit about myself. But, I like to think that was a mutual exchange where hopefully he learned some things from me as well. But yeah, great dude, good buddy. I fucking love you too, homie. and I think with that, we just hit the hour mark. I think that's enough of me running my suck. I got to put the kids to bed now anyway. So, man, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you guys chiming in. All the questions were fantastic, and hopefully this is something we can do again in the near future. So cheers, happy St. Patrick's Day, and have a good one.